Hello everyone, good morning. It is almost 10:15 for me and I got up 5 minutes ago. So that's why I look absolutely exhausted, because I am. So yesterday, after I streamed, which was sort of like midway through when I was studying, like I sort of study in the morning basically. My computer also is really keen to turn its fans high today, so I apologise if you can hear that. So I'd woken up in some pain yesterday, and as the day went on, the pain got worse and worse and worse. So my lips are also falling apart. My pain started off as back pain, and now is in basically all of my body. And different bits flare up at different times. This is part of why it's been really hard to find out what's wrong. And yesterday, my left hip, which is generally one of the worst bits of my body, and my left knee, which is also one of the worst bits of my body, decided that they wanted to like forcibly eject themselves from my body or something, because it was not good. And so I ended up like working from my bed or my laptop, and I'm very glad I'm able to do that, because then, I could be in a different position, I could adjust what position I was in. That helped a lot. That as the day went on, I was just in more and more pain, and I managed to do the whole day, and I'm really proud of that. But it did mean I was taking my maximum dose of painkillers, which are exceedingly soporific, aka they make me very drowsy. And generally the next night, I don't think I've noticed this too much, because often when I'm flaring, I've then been staying in bed longer anyway. But it definitely has a knock-on effect the next day. In fact, I haven't taken my dose this morning, which I should have done. This is a bad thing. You should not skip medication doses if you're meant to take them at regular times. But I just didn't want to be more sleepy. I was already struggling to get out of bed. So because I've got multiple different things, it can sometimes be hard to work out if something is bad enough that I need to rest longer. So I have a problem a lot of the time when I wake up and my instinct is, oh God, I don't want to get out of bed, I need to stay in bed longer. Forcing myself to get up and go to whatever it is I need to do is not going to be good for me. But then I doubt that, because my brain weasels are like, hey, are you sure? Maybe you're just really lazy and an awful person. So in order to counteract that, because they're often wrong, always wrong, in fact, but not to the extent that I can just be like, okay, I'll ignore you. It doesn't quite work that way, unfortunately. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem. So to deal with that, my mentor has given me this method of working out if I should be resting longer. Because the problem is, what would either happen is I'd either stay in bed and my brain weasels would be awful to me, and so I wouldn't actually rest at all, because I'd just be lying there in a fit of anxiety where my brain weasels are just yelling at me for several hours. Or I would make myself get up when I should actually have been resting, and then might make my physical pain worse, or just generally stress myself out further. So the method that my mentor taught me is that I've got 4 categories basically for my general symptoms I get. So they're pain and discomfort, anxiety, sort of depression and motivation, and fatigue. And I rate each of those. I mean, I'm meant to be rating them out of 5. I think I've been rating them out of 10 by default, just because that's generally what you're asked to rate things out of. It doesn't really make that much of a difference anyway. So I have to rate them, and then if you generally in the process of doing that, get more in touch with how you're actually feeling, and also get more of an idea of whether it's bad enough that I need to stay in bed. And generally, if I've gone over a 20, because that means I've got at least 5 an average of at least 5 in every category, that's when I sort of have started to go, oh yeah, I should still be in bed. And I sat there this morning and I carefully, sort of like, I'd already given myself a line at this point. So my alarm goes off at 8. I aim to start studying at 9. When my alarm went off at 8, I set a 50-minute timer so that I'd get up just before 9 and be up in time to study on time, but I'd also have some rest. So we're now at 9 o'clock basically, and I'm deciding whether I should rest more to stay in bed. Obviously, you know that the story ends will be getting up at just after 10, so this isn't going to be hugely surprising. But I'm sitting there and I've done my numbers and I've worked everything out and I'm in tune with how much pain I'm in and so forth and how tired I am, and I'm now croaking because I'm very tired. And I get to 19 or 18, and I'm like, yes, maybe this one's probably, you know, a 6 or a 7. Oh no, that means I'm at 18 or 19. What do I do? I've made this break point too firm. So I stayed in bed for another hour because I wasn't sure, and I was like, I'm amazed that I've made it to this point in the week. This is my equivalent of Thursday. I'm knackered. I'm ready to do nothing for a while, but it's not that time yet. And I get more of a line tomorrow because I work later tomorrow. So it means I can rest a bit more tomorrow morning. But the fact that I'm here at all today is really good. Because previously I've been sort of like staying in bed all morning, rolling out of bed, going straight to work, rolling out of work, going straight to bed, sort of thing. Well, not quite that extreme, but like losing my day effectively, which then makes me feel worse because I've whilst I've rested, I've also had my day stolen from me. And I know this is when I have to talk about this in my mentoring sessions, I always catch myself going, oh God, I'm so sorry, I'm meant to be having academic mentoring. I should be talking about my studying. But the thing is that this impacts everything. Like anyone who has had any sort of trouble sleeping, whether it's like long-term from insomnia or just, you know, from an acute stress or just because your cat is loud or, you know, whatever it may be, you've got children, knows that sleeping badly or not enough or at the wrong times has a huge knock-on effect on everything. And I'm very aware of that. And that's why I've been fighting really hard. I don't like that metaphor. I've been trying really hard. That's a rant for another time. I've been trying really hard to stay on this routine and sleep at the same time so that my body starts to recognise that sleep is not something that you're meant to get from 4 a.m. until noon, and it is in fact something you're meant to get from midnight until 8 a.m. or something around. That's where I'm aiming for. I don't help it by sometimes working nights, but I can't really avoid that, unfortunately. And in that instance, I just have to deal with it, and I just accept that I've ruined the next day as well. And that's part of the trade-off. But yeah, I'm here, and I'm really pleased that I'm here. Yesterday was proof that I was over the hump of the middle of the week. So the fact that I've turned up at all is amazing. I think also it's a big thing. I really shouldn't pause to drink water mid-sentence. I should just stop a sentence and then drink the water and then continue. I think it's a really big thing that I have done this again today, now, whilst feeling like this, because I think in order for it to be my research for my PhD is very much about authenticity, and some of the sources I want to look at. So I look at text-based things, but interestingly, I encountered someone who's doing some research this week at the conference who is using YouTube videos and vlogs as a form of digital text. And that was really interesting to me. I think what's interesting about it is that it intertwined. I mean, there's a whole load of things, but one of the things that's interesting is that it intertwines with the idea of performativity and am I, when I come here, do I perform a different version of myself? And I know I certainly, when I was streaming gaming, I didn't perform a different version of myself, but I definitely gave a very particular version of myself. And I think one of the reasons I found it stressful, as much as I enjoyed it, was that I didn't really let myself be myself. And I became very self-conscious of things like talking too fast and drinking mid-sentence and not drinking enough water whilst I was talking. Because silence makes me... this is one of the greatest ironies of social anxiety. Sound triggers me very badly, and I mean that in the medical sense of the word. I'm very sensitive to sound, and in order to leave the house on my own, I have to wear noise-cancelling headphones, and I struggle with taking them off. But silence makes me really uncomfortable. Like in a social situation, obviously, in general, silence is quite nice. But in the context of like a conversation, my least favourite thing is when you're in a seminar and the person leading the seminar asks a question, and because I have a lot of trauma around classroom situations, where I used to answer every question and also correct the teacher and then get bullied horribly for it, I have a difficulty in answering questions because I really want to, because I know the answer. I've got a really good answer and I want to contribute. But at the same time, I don't want to be the person speaking all the time, and I get very self-conscious about it. So when a seminar leader asks a question and I have an answer, because I generally do, because I think most people generally do if you're there to learn something, and then no one speaks. That is my least favourite moment in seminars, where you're just sitting there like, is anyone going to say anything? Do I have to say something? And yeah, so that's... and I'm afraid that it looks like my captioner did not pick up my speaky voice. It's not picking up everything today. I apologise for that. Maybe I've moved my microphone a bit closer and maybe that will help. It might be because I'm a bit croaky. Maybe it's struggling with that. I am using an auto captioner because I don't... it's the thing I have access to. So hopefully I know it's not perfect, but hopefully it's better than nothing. I'm sure it's better than nothing. But yeah, so I think it's awesome that I'm here. When this is done, I'm going to have like an hour and a quarter or so left of study time. I'm not going to go over that, in part because we need to go food shopping before I then start working. And also because I think I do need to, not feel that I have to make up for time that I have taken off because I needed to look after myself, which is a thing I'm very good at telling other people, and I'm terrible at listening to myself. So I had on my list for today that I wanted to do some more note copying because I need to fight that notebook full of notes. I think if I can get to... So I got actually yesterday to all of my notes from the conference in February. So if I can get through those, then I'll be happy today, because then I'll be on to other reading that I've done for my PhD. And there's so much more still to go. Future me is going to really appreciate current me, but current me is very much like, what the hell are you doing? So I want to get some more of that done. I want to just generally do... I know I talked yesterday about getting into those like longer books of like all the Nordic LARP stuff I've got, and there's... what's her name? Hold on, I'm going to open my references app because I think I remember her name and I'm not sure. So I'm going to see. Yes, Sarah Lynn Bowman. I have one of her books as well that's digital. So I was going to go through those, but I think I want, because they're all like 200-page books, or maybe 100, I'm not sure. I want, because they're digital, so I can't really tell. I want to have some more time to do that, so maybe I'll leave that for tomorrow, and then today I'll just do some note copying and then just some general reading around my field. That's something that I'm trying to do at least one day every week, because I think that's really, I mean, I do it outside of that time as well, but I have a folder on my bookmarks that is just called to read. So if something comes in, like I'm subscribed to a bunch of academic journal alerts and that sort of thing. And if something comes in at a time where I'm not able to read it, I'll put it in there, or I'll go through the email, trawl which of because some of my journal alerts they ping on things that have no reference to what I'm studying. So like I have, some of them are always correct. Like I have pings for depression, although occasionally I get articles through about the Great Depression, and I'm like, no, that's not quite. But like for my dissertation, I have LARP in all of its forms, so the word, the acronym, and the shorter acronym. And the shorter acronym is like something in genetics. Somewhere in genetics there is something with the acronym LRP. So occasionally I open my ZTalk notifications and it's like just some like biology thing, and I go, no, this is not quite it. But yeah, so I'll throw them in that folder. So maybe probably should have done that a while ago. I'm still croaky. Maybe I'll go through that folder a bit. What have I got in there? Let's have a look. Oh, there is a lot in there. Yes, there is a lot in there because my university's subscription to the Journal of Medical Humanities, aka the journal that I use more than any other journal in existence, expired. So I've just got like half a dozen articles sitting in there waiting to see if they've redone the subscription, which they did say they were doing. To be fair, they've been great about it, because I wrote in and was like, hi, I really need this, and I don't understand why, as a university with a master's in medical humanities, you would let this subscription expire. But it turns out it's tied to a different subscription. So because obviously the librarians have to presumably manually redo a lot of these subscriptions, but they weren't alerted to because they didn't realise it was tied to another subscription that they have. So I think it may well be sorted out now, but we'll see. Because it looks like 7 of the articles in my to read are from there. So yeah, and then I've got some other ones that I want to look at. I've got a bunch of talks I want to watch. So maybe I might watch some talks and continue knitting this adorable scarf, which is what I've been doing. What I was doing during the conference. Actually, that's a good thing to talk about. I think that's something that should be talked about because so there is an instinct that if you are watching a talk, especially if you're there in person, like if you're in a seminar or a lecture or something like that, one of the stigmas against, I think especially neurodiverse people, because I know that this sort of relates to stimming in autism and a few other like coping mechanisms that people use and stuff. There is an assumption that you need to be focused on something. I was talking a bit about this yesterday, about how no one would think anything if I was looking down at my notes or at my computer or whatever. But it would be weird if I was like doing this and just looking off into the middle distance or at the ceiling. People would consider that weird. They would also consider it potentially rude if I sat there knitting. Here's the interesting thing with knitting. If I don't do something with my hands whilst I am watching or listening to something, my brain weasels get loud. For some reason, the moment I have something to do, so in this case knitting, I then can focus on what I'm listening to. It doesn't work if I need to be constantly looking at something as well. So, for example, in the Q&As and whilst watching the presentations from the conference this week, that was fine. I could knit away. When we got to watching, like there were some film screenings which were amazing. If you go on my Twitter, I have shared one of them that just emotionally destroyed me, but in the best way. Yeah, so in that instance, I wasn't knitting, partly because when I was watching that film, I was just like, it's going to use that as the thumbnail now. I was just leaning forward and just on the edge of my seat sobbing. But yeah, so it really helps me to focus. And that is, I think, a thing that people don't realise. And I'm now wondering, like, would I be more comfortable doing this if I was knitting whilst I was doing it? Are we going to yeet ourselves out of just chatting and into the art and craft stream? Let's find out. We've got 10 minutes or so left. This is on, I really don't need it to be on circular needles, because as you can probably imagine, it doesn't come off the needle very much. This is for a small child, by the way. It's not, I'm not just making a weirdly narrow scarf. Although, of course, I might need to turn this down a bit so you can actually see what I'm doing, because otherwise it would be weird if I was just my hands were moving down there and you couldn't see. I've already cocked it up, so this is going well. But yeah, so I'm sort of wondering if maybe if I look at this, you also get some ASMR knitting needle noise, maybe. This wool is very tight as well, so it basically involves me poking at myself with they're wooden, so it's not particularly bad, but it does involve me just like slowly annihilating this finger which is sitting here. But yeah, so it's slowing me down already. So this is an interesting thing that I've discovered with so when my pain has been bad, I use a walking stick, and I talked about this like the last couple of days, and I've blogged about it as well, because I have a lot of feelings about it and it's very complicated. But one of the things that using a stick does is it slows me down, because I have a tendency to walk too fast. Partly because I spent so long living in central London, and that's the speed at which you walk if you're not a tourist. And then you're really rude about anyone who walks slowly. But yeah, so this is weird, by the way. And I find that things that slow me down really help, because obviously if you slow down when you're walking, the pain isn't as bad, because often it's not, I don't need the stick for stability, although I do if the pain is bad enough that, like, putting weight on my leg, because that's where it's my left sort of hip and knee. If putting weight on it is bad enough pain-wise that I then feel wobbly, then I do use it sort of for stability, but mostly I'm using it just to sort of even out my weight distribution, and generally slow me down and just be a source of support. So I think that's what this does for me. I don't know if am I going to be knitting for the rest of these vlogs now? Is this what this channel has become? I think I'll need to adjust how my webcam is set up if I want to do that, and also move hold on, one of these things I can achieve. I can do that. That's the thing I can do right now. But yeah, I've got it on this exceedingly long circular needle because I don't think I have needles in this. Is 5 mil? Oh no, that's the US size on that one. The EU size will be on this side. I've now lost what I was talking about. I think because I basically come to the end of what I was talking about, I think that's the problem. But yes, that I was talking about my plan for today, which is just to do some reading, and then tomorrow I'll go into those longer pieces. I don't think I'm going to push myself to write too much either today or tomorrow. I think especially with the start I've had to today, that's not something I want to push myself to do, especially because a lot of what I'm writing about is very emotional. Whilst it's not as traumatic as my previous topic choice was, there's still, the whole point is that I've got a lot of really strong emotions attached to role playing and the friends I've made role playing and the characters I've played and just the act of pretending to be someone else. And so I think I won't do that today. I do want to try and make sure I do some creative writing in some way each day, so I might well do some this evening if I don't end up doing any at work, which I think actually I will be doing some today. And I've got to remember to drink water as well. The problem is that my water bottle is like a litre, so it's also made of glass, so I'm always afraid when I'm putting it down on the desk that the poor microphone is like... Yeah, I don't think that's really happening though, because it's a good microphone. Yeah, I think that's the plan. And then tomorrow I'll just do some reading. When I'm reading, I tend to do Pomodoro technique, especially if I don't do it quite as much if I'm reading articles, because articles by their nature are, obviously all writing is finite, but articles are more finite. I don't think you can be more finite. They're shorter, and so you stop earlier. So unless they're super long, I'll tend to do, like, my burst is an article and then I'll take a break and then I'll do another. Whereas if I'm reading like longer like books, I will do 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, or 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off sometimes, if it's easier. Because I do have trouble focusing for long periods of time, not because I suppose it is kind of getting distracted. Basically, my brain weasels get loud, and I can't knit whilst reading. That doesn't work. I think it's one of the reasons actually that handwriting my notes is better for me as well. It's both because it helps me process what I'm reading more, but also because it gives me something tactile to do. I don't think knitting whilst talking is working for me, but we tried. An effort was made. So I'm going to finish this row and I'm going to put that more along there. I think that was like 4 or so rows. There was some. And I'll move everything back into place so you can actually see my entire face again, as opposed to just like this bit of me. Yeah, I think that's my plan, and I think if I can do that, I'll feel really happy. I mean, I already feel really happy with how I've done this week. I'll feel even happier with how I've done this week if I can manage to do that. I'm hoping that the fact that I have just turned up every day, I hope that means I continue to feel like that, because often what will happen is I'll feel great about it, and then the brain weasels will get loud, and they're not logical. And they'll appear and be like, yeah, but you didn't do all of these things. And I think being off schedule with my dissertation makes it easier for them to do that. It makes it harder to remember that actually I'm really far ahead. If I'm in the equivalent of the start of my term now, and you get one term in which to do it. And I'm in the equivalent of that, and I've already done all this reading. I've already written, I don't know how many words I've got, sort of excluding the stuff that I've copied from existing writing, because obviously I know I need to break that down further, so it's not all that. Well, my lips really are disintegrating. I think I probably got about 3,000 words, which is about a quarter of my dissertation. So there is logically nothing wrong with where I'm up to, even bearing in mind that I think I want, because what I'm writing is very like fragmented, episodic, modular almost. Whilst it's going to flow through it, I also think there's going to be room for me to reorder things. So I'm sort of expecting that November is going to be used editing and finalising and, you know, putting everything together that way. I need to like do all the formatting and stuff as well and typesetting, especially because I know I'm including poetry, and my poetry is free verse, so does tend to include like using indentation as part of the poetic form, and that can be a massive pain in the arse to typeset. Because it's all digital, I want to make sure that I do it correctly digitally, which reminds me I need to change my Scrivener settings to stop indenting paragraphs, because I'm doing this all digitally, so I don't want my paragraphs indented. But yeah, so I think that's my plan. Let's, you know, acknowledge that I showed up today, and I've got I have a bunch of boards. I've got all my boards for my dissertation up there, and I will finish with this story. And I've got a board up here that is my self-care board. And it includes like a list of things that I can do as acts of kindness towards myself, which I do in reaction to brain weasels being loud, or, you know, just because I need some self-care for some other reason. And there is a Brené Brown quote on there, amongst several Brené Brown quotes, frankly. But there is one that says, just show up. Because she talks a lot about showing up and being seen, and that showing up is a huge amount of the battle. So I showed up. I'm going to go and copy some notes and do some reading, maybe investigate why I just heard a cat screeching. I don't think it's my cat. But yeah, I will see you all tomorrow. It will be later on tomorrow. I don't think that really matters, because I haven't told anyone apart from, you know, my followers that get Twitch alerts that this is happening. And also they're all recorded. I'm now actually recording to myself as well as Twitch recording it, because I'm a Twitch affiliate, so my VODs do stay for 14 days, and I can put some in highlights to make them stay longer. But that's not going to happen indefinitely. So I'm recording all of them so that possibly at some point I can, I don't know, put them on YouTube or put them somewhere. Which is one of the reasons that there's no background music or anything, because it gives me the freedom to throw this wherever I want to. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I actually feel a bit less tired now. I'm not as croaky, but I do feel a bit less tired. So yeah, I will see all of you tomorrow, and then that will be it until Thursday, and we'll see if I manage to come back. Thursday will be interesting because I have mentoring on Thursday as well, so I'm gonna end up being like on video for an hour and a half. So we'll see how much I manage that. I'm assuming I sort of have to stream first thing on Thursday, and then do some studying, and then do my mentoring. Obviously my mentoring is part of my studying. I count it towards all of that, but yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. And we'll see if this can continue for another week, because apparently I've almost done a whole week. So thank you very much for being here. I've run over today. Possibly, I think it was the knitting. I'm going to blame the knitting. The knitting was an experiment. We tried it. It's not a long-term thing, I don't think. But yeah, so thank you all so much for coming, and I will see you all tomorrow.